Hello, welcome again to FAIRtax Power Radio. I'm Bob Paxton.
I'm Bob Scarborough.
And we are the FAIRtax
FAIRtax
Guys.
Guys.
You still have your scrolling banner.
Man.
Again,
Vintage scrolling banner. There
yes,
is
available at fairtaxstore.org. What was that?
I said there is a company that does these scrolling banners, and I don't know what the minimum is, but we're running out. And if people want one, and these are great things to have, it could stand
Yeah,
on your.
the regular supplier that we got that from originally just wants too big a minimum order for us
Right.
now. So we were looking for an alternative supplier for those things. So email me the contact information there, and I'll pass it on to our FAIRtax store guy and see if we can get those. It would be a shame if those go out of stock and don't get restocked at all.
Correct. And of course, you got the template for it and everything right here.
Yep.
And that's all you can do. Fair tax. I love it.
All right. Well, let's get underway here on FAIRtax Power Radio and dive right into my favorite portion of the show, and
Yes,
that
sir.
is the Congress.gov segment where we keep track of what the Congress critters are trying to do to the tax code. And let's see, here's my little note here that says, if you put the words Internal Revenue Code in quotes in the search function there at Congress.gov and select legislation in the current Congress, as of the day we're recording this, 1,703 hits back on that search, because the Congress critters are always busy trying to mess with the tax code, because the lobbyists up there are always busy trying to buy tax favors for their well-heeled clients, and the Congress critters up there are all too happy to get all that money for their reelection campaigns. And so the tax code has morphed into something that is well beyond what it is intended to be, just as a mechanism for raising the government, the money that the government needs to survive and operate. But all right, let's get going. This is HR 7381. This is from Representative Mike Thompson, a Democrat out in California. And there's a companion bill on this one too, S 3817 and HR 7381. This is the Prevent Presidential Profiteering Act. How politically charged does that sound?
Not just presidential, but I mean everybody up there. Every member.
This bill is specifically aimed at the President of the United States, and we know who that is at the moment. We know there are people just actually cannot stand the guy on the other side of the aisle. But this bill says they want to amend the Internal Revenue Code to impose a tax on damages received by the President of the United States on account of any civil action filed against the United States and for other purposes. Now, I am not aware of any civil action that the President of the United States has filed against the United States, so I'm not sure where this is coming from, other than just pure political hatred on the other side of the aisle. But this bill wants to amend the Internal Revenue Code to impose a tax on damages received by the president. Well, I know that the president is, going after some of these dishonest media outlets in court, but that's not, an action against the United States. So whatever that is. But anyway, that's what this guy's up to amend the Internal Revenue Code to impose a tax on damages received by the president of the United States on account of any civil action filed against the United States. Why would the president file civil action against the United States to begin with? Who knows? But that's what that is. HR 7381 and the companion bill S 3817.
Yes.
Okay, let us continue on here, looking at Congress.gov and what the Congress critters do to the tax code. This is from Representative Lance Gooden of Texas, District 5, HR 7361. This is the No Tax on Restored Benefits Act. We've had no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime. Now they're looking at No Tax on Restored Benefits Act. And this one's actually got some text in it that we can dig into and have a look at if my computer will hurry up and get that done. And this is a bill to amend the Internal Revenue Code to exclude from gross income. How many times have we seen that phrase here? They want to exclude from gross income certain benefits received by reason of the Social Security Fairness Act of 2023, which I will admit I'm not hugely familiar with. But if you receive any benefits under the Social Security Fairness Act of 2023, this bill wants to exclude that from your gross income. And again, I just remember our economist that we talked to a while back was saying that one of the worst things with the income tax is trying to define what income is. Income is usually just, whatever flows into your pocket or your bank account, whatever. But we have got all of these. Well, this income doesn't count, and this income doesn't count, and this income doesn't count. So that's not really income. So it's the whole idea is that the system is so crazy and so convoluted. We need to get rid of the whole thing and replace it with the fair tax. And I think you will agree with that, sir.
Without a doubt. And I think that's the beauty of the fair tax is it's simple. It's just right out in front of you. Everything's transparent. It's real simple. You want to buy something at the grocery store or buy a car or take a rocket ship to the moon, you'll pay tax on it. And that's how you're going to pay your taxes. And if you decide that you're going to live frugally or you're going to save and you're not going to spend your money, then all of a sudden you're in a better position in terms of money that you'll have in your pocket. But it's as simple as that. And all the carve outs, it's just got to be a mind-blowing experience for CPAs to try to keep up with that. I know they do that because that's their job, but my goodness, how long can this go on before everything's carved out?
I don't know. I like to fly, but I'm going to pass on the flight to the moon if you don't mind.
But you do
what was that?
I said you do like to fly, though, don't you?
I do like to fly. I have a pilot's license in my wallet, believe it or not. All right, here we go. Let's go with this is the next one from Senator Ruben Gallego of Arizona. This is S3770, 3770, the Strong Start Act. And let's see, again, we have to dig into the text before we can see what this says. And it says this is a bill to amend the Internal Revenue Code to make new child payments to provide for American Dream accounts and for other purposes. So I'd guess, I'm guessing on this, it's Senator Ruben Gallego is a Democrat. So I would imagine that these American Dream accounts are probably the Democrat alternative to the Trump accounts we've been hearing about. But this bill, 3770, to amend the Internal Revenue Code to make new child payments to provide for American Dream accounts and for other purposes. There is no end to the fiddling and faddling that the Congress critters will try to do with the tax code at the behest of lobbyists, for sure.
Very true. And the thing is it's tit for tat here. I think if it's like the Trump account, it's just something that's not named the Trump account that does the exact same thing. Wouldn't you think?
It could be. All right. Well, let's keep going. This is another one from the Senate side, 3759 from Senator Moran in Kansas. The SAF Act, SAF, the SAF Act 2023. And you get into this one, and it will tell you that Senator Moran wants to amend the Internal Revenue Code to reinstate the special rate calculation on the clean fuel production credit with respect to sustainable aviation fuel and to extend the credit through 2033. So again, more, this says reinstate the calculation. I mean, they had it at one time, then they took it away, and now he wants to put it back. The tax code is so unstable, it's just crazy. And if you're wondering what SAF stands for in SAF Act, this is the Securing America's Fuels Act. But they want to reinstate the special rate calculation of the clean fuel production credit with respect to sustainable aviation fuel and to extend that credit through 2033. And just the complexity of the tax. This is the reason it's thousands upon thousands upon thousands upon thousands of pages that nobody fully understands, that nobody can really can know. What does the tax code say? Well, I don't know. There's so much of it. There's no way to absorb it all. But and stuff like this is the reason why that happens.
Yes, exactly. And even I don't know that there's the smartest person in the world that that would be able to have all of the knowledge, to be able to speak with certainty about what
Yeah.
any particular bill may or may not do to somebody's tax situation.
Yeah, well, we know our buddy Jade Wally's a pretty smart guy, and he's a practicing CPA, and he has told us before there is just no way that any single human being can wrap their mind around the entirety of the tax code and understand it all. There's just too much there for any one person to absorb, even if it's your job to absorb it and keep going.
Right.
And again, I love to refer to that Money Magazine article where they gave the same information on the hypothetical family to 50 different smart guys preparing taxes and got 49 different answers as to what that person owed in taxes. So it's just incredibly complex. And it needs to go away with a beautifully simple system, the FAIRtax. You just pay your taxes at the cash register when you buy things. End of story. You get back the tax you pay on your purchases for your basic necessities. So you feed your family before you feed the government. There is no downside to the FAIRtax at all. Okay, one more here we need to get into. This is from Senator, I'm not sure how you pronounce Thanedar, Senator from Michigan. This is the Middle Class Tax Cuts Act, which is pretty cool. It's HR 7303. And this is a bill to amend the Internal Revenue Code, and it just simply says to reform the individual income tax rates. And I imagine you could dig down in there further and see exactly what they're up to. I'm not going to get into all that minutia. But again, the instability of the tax code. They are always messing with this thing, trying to add stuff, take stuff away, recalculate something, reform things. And again, it's at the behest of lobbyists that people don't understand that Congress critters are just lining their campaign coffers with all this lobbyist cash, and they are making an absolute monstrosity out of the tax code in the process. And we, the American people, pay the penalty because nobody understands what's going on. It drives you nuts.
It's just crazy.
It is. All right. Well, I'll say we've taken a little extra time here on Congress.gov this week. Let's get going here and continue with our Objections and Questions section. This is chapter 15 of the FAIRtax book, the white FAIRtax book written by Boortz and Linder in 2005. I mean, this thing is over 20 years old now, but it is still an extremely relevant source of information. If you want to know what the FAIRtax is all about, there's a picture of it. I bet you can still get this on Amazon. You can still there are places you can still get this book. If you don't have it, I would suggest you do so. But I do know that last week, as we were finishing up the program, you threw a question at me, and I said, well, we don't have enough time to deal with that right now. Let's do it next week. So I will give you your second opportunity to oh, wait a minute. I can't answer questions unless I've got
the cheer wine.
I got to have my can of cheer wine.
Cheer wine shipped by tractor trailer to Bob Paxton from North Carolina. Probably
Absolutely.
On a basis.
Okay, proceed, sir.
Okay, from Linder and Boortz, the FAIRtax. What about state or local sales taxes and state payroll taxes?
Okay, I've got time to answer you now. Now, the first thing that people need to understand is that the FAIRtax is a federal plan. The FAIRtax is designed to replace the federal income tax system. And every state, all 50 of them, will still have the autonomy to design their state tax system in any way they want to. Again, Boortz and Linder say, quoting from the book, it's up to the various states to reform and modify their own tax system if that's what they believe the citizens want. But they go on to say that after the implementation of the FAIRtax, we expect state governments will start feeling tremendous pressure to conform their own tax systems to the national FAIRtax system. And the end result would be that many, if not all states, will likely bow to political pressure, remove all of the state level income, payroll, corporate business taxes, and all would subscribe to the same inclusive sales tax used by the federal government. They have talked to some governors about that. They said they would love to do that, likely eliminating the state income taxes. Since each state that levies an income tax, they use the federal regulations to determine taxable income and regulations and all the junk like we look at in Congress.gov. All of that goes away with the fair tax. So when the states no longer have that guidance to shape their own systems, they'll just do what Georgia and Alabama are trying to do. Hey, we'll get rid of our state income tax and replace it with a fair tax style consumption tax.
You would think that once the ball was rolling, and I was thinking, okay, it's going to go the other way. We're going to have a number of states that do it, and then people in those states would demand the federal government to comply in a similar fashion. But it appears that it may be a quicker benefit for the states if the fair tax was passed nationally first, even though there are some components.
I think you're right. If we could get the fair tax passed at a state level, again, Georgia and Alabama and Nebraska is also looking at getting rid of their income tax. So there are several states that say they want to get rid of their income tax. But if, just one or two states implement a fair tax style consumption tax to replace their state income tax, and people see how well that works, they like getting their they like not having their, the state withholding. They like not having to file a state level income tax return. They like getting the state level prebate, the refund on their taxes on their basic necessities. And when people see how well it works, and of course the thing is the fair tax is going to make a state like that much, much more attractive to businesses to move in if they don't have to deal with any kind of corporate income tax rates. And then when they see how well that the fair tax works for a given state economy, then they'll say, all right, wait a minute, let's put this in play for the whole nation. Scale that up, and instead of going state against state, now we go country against country. And when the United States becomes the first country to eliminate entirely their corporate income tax, businesses come flooding to our shores because it's just a lot easier to do business when you don't have to deal with all that garbage. We see how much jobs and capital comes flowing into the country, and everybody says, darn, we missed the boat. The United States beat us to it. That's one of the reasons Neal Boortz doesn't want to talk about the fair tax to other countries. He wants us to be the first ones to do it.
Right. And of course, we know that there's such resistance right now in the halls of Congress for any kind of even, remote discussion about something that looks like a consumption tax because of the long tentacles of influence that basically reside in Congress now.
They make a lot of money selling tax favors.
Yeah, it's just crazy.
And it will be much harder to do that with the fair tax because you could bury a provision in the tax code. We look at all that in Congress.gov every week, and they get away with it because they can do something that just doesn't affect 98% of the country, and so 98% of the country doesn't care if you implement this particular provision. Right. But when you do something to the fair tax, if you raise the rate, then wait a minute, everybody's going to see that. And so the Congress, it's just politically harder to monkey with the fair tax than it would be to the income tax because there's just so much room to hide things. In the income tax code, the fair tax is pretty straightforward. 133 pages. A fair tax bill replaces thousands upon thousands upon thousands of pages of code and regulations and case law and all that stuff that we have to make the tax code work. It's just crazy. But hopefully then when the fair tax is implemented nationally, which probably is going to happen after one or two states do it, but then when it comes in that all of the rest of the states, according to Boortz and Linder here, are in most likelihood going to follow through, and we will have a state level fair tax across the nation, as well as the national level fair tax.
Right, and exactly.
I hope I live long enough to see that. I'm not sure I will, but I'm going to try.
Well, we hope you do. I mean, goodness gracious, that's But well, I mean, everybody's out there doing their thing, and then we want to thank all of the viewers and folks that listen to the program every week and make comments on social media and join us every week for being out there. It makes us, kind of push a little harder, and we absolutely will be happy to field questions to the program. If you have any, you want to ask a question, or you might have a comment about something we've presented on the show, but we do thank you all for being a part of this whole endeavor.
Yeah, leave a comment on the video. We get that thefairtaxguys@gmail.com, which I will admit I don't check as often as I probably should. So if you send a comment or a question to that email address, we'll eventually see it. It may take me a while, but there's let's keep going here. Where our time's getting away from us. My turn to ask you a question. What about if you buy a used car? How would that be treated under the fair tax?
Well, anything used, used car, used home, used boat, used rocket ship, doesn't matter.
Yeah, Elon Musk reuses his rocket ships. They didn't used to be able to do that, but that's kind of cool now.
The fair tax will only apply to the sale of new consumer goods purchased at the retail level, not to used items. No citizen will be burdened with the responsibility of having to collect sales taxes on the sale of their personal property, be it homes, cars, boats, or anything else. The Fair Tax Act says that the purpose of the fair tax is to tax all consumption of goods and services in the United States once, one time, without exception, only once. Once the tax is paid on a car, a home, a blender, garden tools, muskets, cannons, any other consumer good or service, that's it. So that's pretty cool. I wonder how it's going to affect the people saving, or the manufacturing of items becomes more robust, so that they don't give out, and people, the market would start, trending towards people looking for used items to buy.
Okay, well, is there going to be a tax if I buy a home? I mean, you said it's going to apply to everything.
Used home.
So if I buy if somebody moves out of their house and I buy their house, like Andy is doing, he said he's got a friend who's moving out of his home. He's got a lake house down there in Tuscaloosa. Yeah. So Andy's going to be moving. He's going to be buying his friend's lake house. So that's going to be cool. But anyway, if the fair tax were in place at that point, there would be no fair tax at all on that purchase.
That's right. Economists have estimated the embedded taxes on new home construction to be about 25% as of the writing of the book.
So that means that the price of a new home is inflated by 25% by all the taxes. And when those taxes go away, the price of a new home is going to drop considerably. And then when you add the fair tax back in there, it's not going to be a tremendous difference from what you're seeing right now. So all these people that are running around, Chicken Little, the sky is falling, it's going to cost you 30% more to buy everything. They're just not telling the truth.
It takes some consideration. I mean, I remind folks of this all the time. Don't just gloss over the different components of the Fair Tax Act. Dig deep, and there are enough people that are well versed, like Bob Paxton or John Gaver, for example, or Randy Fisher or Steve Hayes, that are engaged in explaining and conversations about the fair tax. Spend some time with it and get to understand it. Don't just listen to the nightly news that says, this is it. This is, 30 seconds worth of content on it. You really want to get involved in, stopping for a minute and thinking about these things. Because can you imagine, you go by somebody else's house, there's not going to be a taxes, any kind of sales tax or associated with it. If you're making $60,000 a year, for example, instead of taking home around $3,800 per month to pay your mortgage and living expenses as you are now, the fair tax, you'll take home $5,000 a month instead of $3,800. Interest rates will decline by about 30%, so your payments will be lower, while the money you save and invest won't be taxed. You'll be getting the sales tax rebate check or credit every month, and still go out and buy a new home for no more than you would pay without the fair tax. So, and it's quite possibly you'd buy less.
All right. Well, you mentioned John Gaver a second ago. We have had him on the program before. He has written several books
Yes.
about taxation. His latest one is called Tax Deception. And he has gotten, in the process of writing that book, he came up with 22 goals for what, a tax reform ought to accomplish.
Right.
We just may have to see if we can snag him here on the program in a couple of weeks to go over what the ideal tax would look like if his 22 goals for a good tax reform were implemented. And I will bet you that the fair tax meets just about all 22 of them. Again, that's let's put that in the back of the head. Not quite announcing that yet, but hopefully we can get a hold of Mr. Gaver and we can start going over the 22 goals for tax reform and just see how well the fair tax meets the ball. And John said originally that when he first heard of the fair tax, he thought it was crazy that it would never work. But the more that he got into it, the more he realized, wait a minute, this stuff is actually going to work. So
Yeah.
the fair tax turned a skeptic into a believer when you go digging down into it, like you mentioned just a few minutes ago.
Yeah. Well,
So
you have
hopefully,
to, yeah. It's
okay.
not complex, but it does require some thought beyond what you would hear in a news report or read on a casual conversation that you might have with somebody.
Okay, well, we're not quite through chapter 15 of the FAIRtax book yet. So next week here on FAIRtax Power Radio, we will continue. That will probably be the last episode we need to get all the way through the questions and objections part of the FAIRtax book, chapter 15. After that, let's see if we can get John on with us. I'll try to get a hold of him and see if we can arrange that. But all right. So that's going to wrap up this edition of FAIRtax Power Radio here in just a second. Again, we remind everyone that you can go to fairtax.org. I would suggest that you do this. Go to fairtax.org under I believe, the Get Involved tab at the top of the page. You can download the FAIRtax Candidate Pledge. I would love to see people. And it was interesting. We talked to Steve Toth here on the program a couple of weeks ago. He won his primary.
Yes, he did.
So if he wins the general election, as the Republican candidate is expected to do in that district, we will have another fair tax supporter in Congress. So we need to get as many fair tax supporters in Congress as we can. So if you can download the FAIRtax Candidate Pledge, take it to your candidate's town hall meeting, or just take it to their office or whatever, and say, "Hey, will you sign this? And if not, tell me why not. What is it that you love about the income tax so much that you don't want to get rid of it?" And so, yeah, if you can do that, we'll give you a little howdy and a pat on the back here on the program for getting that done. So again, you can download the FAIRtax Candidate Pledge at fairtax.org. Go through the FAQ as well if you want to educate yourself on the fair tax. There's just a lot of good information there. But now I can tell you that our time is pretty much gone. We're slap done here for this edition of FAIRtax Power Radio. Thank you so much for watching, listening, and we do appreciate it greatly when you share these videos to your various social media accounts. That helps us get the word out. We appreciate that greatly. And we will see you again, same time, same channel next week here on FAIRtax Power Radio. Until we meet again, I'm Bob Paxton.
I'm Bob Scarborough.
We are the FAIRtax Guys, reminding you that fair tax is the only truly fair tax. And once you understand it,
you'll demand it.
So what would you do for her?
We've got several programs that will help her. We just need to find out how much she makes. But the good news is, the less she does, the more we can help.
Yeah.
If I may, with the fair tax, we wouldn't even tax her income. So the more she makes, the more she has.
But still, a consumption tax could eat up a lot of her income.
Which is why at the beginning of every month, we're actually going to give back all that she pays in taxes on basic necessities.
You're going to give her back her taxes?
Every month. On everything taxed on basic necessities. But we're also going to give it back to you and to every American citizen.
Why?
Well, we believe taxes should be fair.